Okay, here we go. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Photo. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Joining me today on the show to discuss all things photographic are Mr. Michael Willems and Mr. Iberian X Perillo. Hey, gentlemen, how are you?
Great, nice to be here, and good to talk to you again, Frederick.
It's good to have both of you guys on. Michael, Iberian X, you're like a veteran on TWiP now. This is like what, your sixth time on the show or third or
Oh,
something,
I,
right?
I don't count, man.
You lost count. You lost count. Michael, we've interviewed you before, but this is you're kind of in the hot seat here as the new guy sitting in the cast of characters here. So tell us and the TWiP army a little bit about yourself.
Right, well, it feels like I've been here forever simply because I've been listening forever. I love TWiP, and a lot of what I know through TWiP. What I know in my job is what I need for my job. I'm a photographer, so I shoot, I teach, and I write. I have three businesses. I teach photography at a local college, I have my own school, and I do traveling show kind of teaching. And I write. I have 6 ebooks, current count. It was one ebook last time we spoke. It's 6 now. And I do as much photography of as many different types as I can.
And what's your favorite genre? If you had to choose one, what would be the genre you stuck to?
Oh, good God, that's so. It's like asking your favorite food. It depends. Is it before or after dessert time?
Well, yeah, pick your
You know,
slice of time.
well, it would involve people for sure. It would involve people, and would probably either be environmental portraits, business portraits, CEO portraits, or nudes, but not of the same person.
Got it. Yeah, CEOs in the nude. There you go. That's a whole different genre of photography right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Barry Nex is cringing over there. Barry Nex, what about you, man? What have you been up to over there? Cranking out the candid frame, doing street photography, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, just doing a little bit of everything. I'm in the midst of working on a new book that I can't talk about now because I'm doing it in conjunction with someone else, and that's going to keep me busy for the next several months. And then, also I'm coming on board with TWiP.
Yes,
All
you
that stuff,
are.
all that stuff happened. So there's no shortage of stuff on my plate ever.
Yeah. So in case you missed it, TWiP Army, listening and watching to this or watching this episode, you just heard Barry Nex officially announce that one of my favorite shows, The Candid Frame, is now joining the TWiP network as one of our TWiP shows, which is a huge deal. So congratulations to me. I think I want to. I was gonna say congratulations to you, but really, I want to say congratulations to me for doing my little Jedi mind trick on you to get you to come into the network.
Well,
So
those flowers in that box of chocolate really just won me over.
you gotta have class. I'm just saying. Look for the Tiffany's box in a couple of weeks. Yeah. All right, guys, let's dive into this show. We've got a lot of cool stuff to discuss. Before we do that, I want to thank our first sponsor for this episode of This Week in Photo, and that's our good friends over at FreshBooks.com. All right, guys, let's get into story number one, and it's all about apps. This app is Priime. So, Priime is an app it's a photo editing app, right, for the iPhone that's out that lets you do some cool things. For example, according to Thomas Hawk wrote a nice article about this, and Thomas Hawk said he thinks that this is the best image editing application that he has used to date, which is huge praise coming from Thomas
Wow,
Hawk, who's probably
that is
shot
great.
more images than most people have to date, right? And in his article, he said the free app features a powerful suite of editing tools, allowing you to enhance a lot of the basics around your photos, including brightness, structure, contrast, warmth, tint, saturation, sharpness, on and on and on, highlight, shadows, vignette, and fade. But the app can also save photos up to 50 megapixels in size. And he goes on to say, I don't know any other app that can let you output such high resolution photos. And another interesting feature of this app is users can purchase styles created by other photographers to make, so photographers can start to generate income by creating their own styles. For example, you guys could create, very next you could create the Perillo kind of theme or look and feel and sell your soul. You can sell your photography soul to people to execute on their photos through Prime, right? So very next, when you look at this, what's your knee jerk reaction? You see, oh, Prime, an app is out there. Is it, let me download that now and get to work with it, or is it the other side of, okay, yet another app that to put on my phone to not use? Like, where do you come in?
Well, as a result of you telling me, I downloaded it, so it's on my phone right now.
Okay.
But usually, I'm not so quick to download the latest apps. I use Snapseed, I use Lightroom, I use SquareReady, and I've just developed a workflow that works for me when I'm, photographing with my phone. When I hear that this might offer some interesting options, I'll play with it. But usually, with these apps, there's something that has to hook me almost immediately. If not, I'll play with it for a little while and then I'll just delete it from my phone. Um, the one thing you mentioned in terms of being able to edit really large files on this is kind of interesting because, um, like I have the Samsung NX1, which has a megapixel file that it can do with it. So I can link the phone to the camera and download that whole file, or I can download a smaller file from it. So I think that's where the larger capacity file capability this thing has could be of interest for people who have these larger megapixel cameras and they want to download the entire file into their phone so they can edit it, do whatever they want, and then upload it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I'm still going to use Lightroom and my computer for most of that heavy lifting, but I can see that on occasion I might want to be able to do that. But
On occasion.
Yeah. Yeah, and
yeah,
that's where I come in now on it. I think my workflow at Baronex is probably very similar to yours. I think the only app that I have Lightroom on my phone, but I don't use it that much. I'm generally either in the Photos app that's built into the device or in the Snapseed and SquareReady, if I'm gonna make something ready for Instagram or whatever, and then assorted other little specialty apps depending on what I want to do. But generally speaking, I could probably get along with just Snapseed. So Michael, when you look at when you see this, right? Like, for example, let me phrase or frame the question here. When I look at this, the first thing I think is like, awesome. A, people are continuing to innovate in this space, but then I also think B, the kind of nugget or the pearl in this in this app is the fact that it can manipulate these large files and the profiles that can follow that you can download from other photographers. But when I look at it and I apply it to my world, I think,
Right.
why do I want to mess with 50 megapixel images or large images on my mobile device? My workflow there is, if I'm shooting with, say, one of my cameras, if I need to get that image off of that camera, I'm gonna move it in there. I'm gonna move a JPEG in there, which is more than adequate for what I need mobily, and then do whatever I want to do with it there and share it out. 50 megapixels, those kind of files I tend to think of as, okay, I'm gonna do some real work. I need to sit down at the MacBook Pro or the iMac and actually, and get to work on it. What do you guys think, Michael?
Yeah, I think the same. I think I can't see it for me because, every time I work on my MacBook Pro, I need more real estate than I have. I've got big screens. I've got the big cinema screen, but that's not enough. I have two of them next to one another, and that's barely enough. I can't see doing anything on an iPad or an iPhone, anything serious. I fail to see it, and that may just be me not seeing it, but, I don't see it. I need as much power as I can get, as much real estate as I can get. My iMac is perpetually hot. It's like 85 Celsius. It's burning, and that's just me editing photos.
Yeah.
Now, doing that on a small device, I'm sure there's I can imagine a scenario when I'm in a hotel room somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I need to do something quickly. An editor wants a picture right now. Yeah, then I can imagine doing something. Other than that, I just don't see it in a serious workflow. Don't forget, I never come back from a shoot with one image. I come back with 250.
Yeah, terabytes of images.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hear it, and maybe part of me is thinking, I mean, I want to play with it, and I looked at the app, and it looks, online, and it looks very pretty. I mean, it's
Mm.
a very well designed app, and part of me is thinking, okay, there's this rumor of these larger Apple tablets. Maybe it makes
Mhm.
sense then,
Yeah.
because then possibly with a larger Retina screen on a tablet and a faster processor in there, we could actually get down to some serious work, desktop level work on a mobile device if that was here. But I just don't see it on my phone right now. I mean, Barry, next, could you see yourself walking around? You say put yourself in a scenario. You're walking around L.A. and you drop into this coffee shop, and you've got Prime loaded on your phone. And would you feel like that's where you might want to start editing, or if you had one of these larger Apple tablets that are rumored to be coming out, would you use that? What do you think?
Oh, I wouldn't bother with a large Apple tablet. No way.
No.
I had an original iPad, and that thing was too big for me. I got an iPad Mini, and that's perfect. That fits in a very small bag. It isn't burdensome, so it's either going to be my iPhone or my iPad Mini, and for there it's going to be like, um, if I want to share an image that I shot and I want to share it on Instagram, but it was produced on my digital camera, I may play with this in Snapseed and all the other applications because sometimes I'll want a specific look that one particular app may not give me, be it Lightroom, be it Snapseed. So it looks like the sort of styles they have here are really kind of interesting. So I might find that there's a particular style in there that I might favor for a particular shot. So I would play with it there and then, kind of upload it. But again, I'd have to really kind of play and experiment with it. I think,
Yeah.
like you said, it's
Yeah, me too.
interesting that photographers are able to sort of sell their particular styles. I
Hmm.
think that's kind of unique because with Instagram, you just get what's baked in.
Right.
I think part of the allure of this thing is the fact that photographers are going to be customizing their own styles and sharing them. And granted, people will purchase it, but it expands the possibility of these apps beyond what the original designer may have intended. So I think
Now, will you purchase one? I mean, are you the customer to purchase someone else's sort of preset formulas?
no, no, I'll
Not
do
me.
what I want because I'm a pretty minimalist. Oh, you were asking Michael or me?
Oh, either, both of you guys, yeah.
Well, for me, I just do what the app natively can give me, and I'm not so much interested in sort of filters that other people have come up with to simply apply them to my images. I think for the most part, I want to have as much control as possible, so I much prefer what I can do with the tool that I have rather than just like plopping a style in and sending it off.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like. I
Same
mean, I
here.
want to see it. I want to see it work in action, before I reserve final judgment. But when I look at it, knee jerk is like, it's kind of like me like rating your closet of Barry and X, and like, it's like, you know what, Barry and X is a snazzy dresser, so I'm gonna take his wardrobe and I'm gonna wear that, and it's gonna make me look as snazzy as a Barry and X gorilla. I don't know, Michael. What about you? I mean, would
Yeah,
you?
same. No, I don't. I don't buy anyone else's styles or filters or inputs or methods, whatever, because I want to do my own. That is what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to minimize it. I try to as little as I can, but of course, I do have treatments that I use. I might zombify someone or give them a nice DSAT look, but that's my DSAT look that I've made, and it's my style. And gosh, it's like Rembrandt borrowing styles from Vermeer. It doesn't sound right.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
No,
I don't dislike, because these are essentially presets, right? Just like in
yeah,
Lightroom, we have presets,
exactly.
and I'm not against presets for the most part, because they serve as an awesome starting point. I use presets as starting points all the time because I'm
Me too.
going to make a black and white shot. I know I'm
Me too.
going to start there and then
Yeah.
make it mine from there. I wonder, hopefully these are of the same ilk, where it's just changing some numbers, and then you can then take the ball and run with it from that point.
Yeah, I imagine, and that's what I would imagine doing if I did this. Buy something I like and tune it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, kudos to Prime for creating this app and thinking outside of the box with this 50 megapixel thing, as well as creating the marketplace, the Prime marketplace, which I think in a lot of ways it opens up a brand new income stream for a lot of photographers, you know. So looking at it from the standpoint of business, this is
Selling,
yet another income stream because people, I'm sure, would buy you know, if you guys got the app and created styles,
yeah,
people may buy them, right? So
yeah, yeah, true. Yeah,
cool,
no,
very interesting.
making money never made me think. It's a
Mm-hmm.
novel idea.
Yeah, you're like, wait, now I really like this app.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So let's move on to story number 2. This one is a little bit depressing. So let me read what Bruce put in the notes here. So prominent photography groups are sounding the alarm about a new bill that was just passed by the Arkansas Senate. This bill is SB-79, also known as the Personal Rights Protection Act. It would require photographers to get written consent from a stranger to feature their likenesses or their likeness in a photograph for most purposes. The law could could have huge implications on street photography, Barry next below, whose practitioners thrive on the ability to capture life and people on camera without having to constantly stop and ask for releases from their subjects. Now, the National Society of Media Photographers, ASMP, writes that it's joining the MPPA, the DMLA, and NPPA and other organizations in opposing this bill and asking the Arkansas governor to veto it. They said this bill expands the individual right of publicity to an unprecedented extreme. This is from the ASMP. The implications of the bill are staggering. For example, an image showing recognizable people posted to the internet for a use that would not require written consent anywhere else in the world could leave you open to a lawsuit just because someone in Arkansas could view it online. Now, our resident street photographer on the show, Mr. Barry Nexperillo, who literally wrote books on the subject. So when you see a law like this, are you worried, or are you like, it's unenforceable, never going to happen?
Oh no, it pisses me off. I mean, I saw it this morning. Someone sent it to me this morning, and I was just like, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. Not just because it impacts, photographers. It's an unnecessary legislation.
Right.
I mean, existing law protects people from their images being used for commercial use. Period. I mean, that is the law of the land. So this law is just poorly written legislation that just sort of eats away at the personal freedoms that we all have. I mean, it's legislation that's based on fear, on a presumption of something that could happen. Mm-hmm. And as a result, it results in poor legislation that just sort of it becomes really very problematic. I mean, I was reading through the bill, and I think for the most part, it's addressing the commercial use of people's images or properties or voice. But I'm no lawyer, but obviously, there's some lines in that bill that make it really problematic. Because one of the things that I was reading about was the fact that someone could, sue even if they're not from Arkansas. They could file a suit against you as a photographer for the use of that image in ways that normally they wouldn't be able to sue you. Mm-hmm. So it creates an environment that it just becomes very hostile to photographers, and lawyers, all they need is a single line in order to go, we can make money from this, and all of a sudden it takes off. I don't see the need for it. There's no need for it, and it just makes matters worse. I think there's this legislation of the politics of fear, and all these people, they start, raising their banners and saying this could happen to our children, or this could happen to us, or terrorism, and blah blah blah. Nothing's actually happened yet, but then all of a sudden they start wanting to write laws to kind of protect us. It doesn't protect the damn thing. All it does, it starts just eating away at the rights that we have as American citizens. And most
not only that, but it eats away the rights that we have as American citizens, but also ties up the courts from things that are more legitimate, right? Than someone complaining that, hey, my likeness was captured in that Walmart parking lot. Now I want to sue you for whatever damages for that, right?
I mean, eventually it would probably get overruled by the United States Supreme Court, but that could take years, and it could be an expensive, problem for not all photographers, but it just takes a few.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the one who all of a sudden has to face all these huge legal damages and legal fees, and wait until the Supreme Court finds in my favor. I mean,
Yeah.
it's stupid and unnecessary.
Yeah. You don't want to be
Guys do better than
whomever versus Perillo as the groundbreaking case, right? You don't want to be that guy,
no,
right?
I don't.
Yeah, Michael, what do you think about this? I mean, I know you're not a street photographer per se, but this extends to all of us, right? I mean,
yeah, no, I like to do street photography. I do quite a lot, and I used
okay.
to shoot a lot for the local newspapers and for fairly big newspapers too. And I've seen this as a trend over the last, I don't know, 10 years. Well, not just since 9/11. It's a continuing trend.
Hmm.
I remember the G20 in Toronto, the G20 conference, when police were very nervous, and I was stopped in the street just before the G20 by a whole bunch of policemen, and they accused me of photographing them from the back, which I didn't know was an offense, which of course it isn't. And they said, you need a release to photograph us. You need a model release. Of course, I told them, no, I don't. I know the law, you don't, apparently. And they didn't, but they insisted.
Hmm.
A local press release by the media sergeant of our local regional police here the other day talked about a suspect who was he was suspected of following some schoolgirls and so on, but that's not the thing I took issue with. The thing that I objected to was his language. He said the suspect was suspected of photography. You know.
Grand photography, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
Grand photography with extreme prejudice. Yeah.
I called him and I said, look, I didn't know there was a crime suspected of photography. You can say suspected of stalking. That's fine. There is an existing law, but
Right.
don't say suspected of photography. No, I think these are very dangerous precedents. I tell my students usually that, you can take pictures of whoever you like, with some exceptions, reasonable expectation of privacy, private property, all those things. But in Quebec, for instance, that isn't the case. In Quebec, you do actually need to remove pictures, delete them if the people pictured object.
Yeah.
Right? I think it would be an extremely bad idea if we go any further in that direction. We're halfway there already, Frederick. You try taking pictures in a railway station,
Right.
see what happens. Even if it's formally allowed, you're formally allowed to take pictures at airports, but you try and see what happens, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
And I think we need to fight back. I think we need to fight back with, I don't know, information, education. Photography is not a bad thing.
Yeah. Well, what do we do in this, both of you guys, Marianax and Michael, what do we do in this case of SB 79, the Personal Rights Protection Act, to make our voices as photographers heard? What are the next steps? Do we write letters to our congresspeople, or do we,
Well,
is it in
Probably.
Arkansas's hands, or what?
well, unfortunately, at the time of this recording, it goes in front of the governor's desk tomorrow, Tuesday.
Yeah.
Which is it April 1st tomorrow?
Wednesday.
Okay, so it's March 31st. It goes on the desk. So by the time people are probably watching this, he will either have signed it or vetoed it. So the hope was that he would veto it tomorrow. So there was a call by ASMP and a lot of other organizations to have people write to both the governor and another person, I think, in the assembly or in the house there, to to make sure that this bill doesn't come into law.
Yeah.
So hopefully, enough people have beat the drums in the last 24 to 48 hours that the governor will listen and think better of letting this legislation pass. But if it passes, we'll be hearing more about it.
Yeah.
Probably
For sure.
Yeah, on this show and on many of our shows, I'm sure you'll hear about it. So then, okay, let's talk about that. What happens? What happens if this passes? Is this the first domino in a series of dominoes to fall, or will the country rail against Arkansas on this particular issue? When I say first domino, it's like, okay, Arkansas did it, so now, Florida will follow, and then Texas, and then, on down the line.
No, what will likely happen is at some point a suit in which a person feels like their rights have been violated,
Mm-hmm.
they'll probably file a civil suit with the photographer, and at that point, organizations like the ACLU and probably will look at the cases that are being filed along those lines, and go through the whole entire court process from local to the state, eventually to federal. So there may be. I don't know if this is going to be a tsunami of legislation that's going to follow with other states, but nevertheless, it's the kind of precedent that if it's not, stamped down, it will have a long-term effect on photographers. I mean, we already have to worry about, people telling us that photography is illegal.
Yeah.
I mean,
Exactly.
you
Exactly.
can't do that. You can't make these pictures, and it's like it's an onerous thing, and I think that though most snap shooters are kind of oblivious to it, they don't realize that the ability to be able to take photographs, to document something, especially on a public street, is so important in terms of us as a culture. I was thinking if it goes, even though I'm going to exaggerate to the extreme, the whole idea is that uh, photographing in public, photographing people in their daily lives in the street, be it for photojournalism, documentary photography, that has a historical purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And if all of a
And
sudden you
value.
have to get permission for everyone that you include in in photographs that are made, you're going to end up with history books in which all the people's faces are blurred.
Redacted, right?
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah, it's
I
untenable.
can't
The
stand
word I would
it.
use is untenable. It's
Yeah.
yeah, and so that is a direction that I have in my notes that I wanted to kind of throw out to you guys, and this why. And I know this is an unanswerable question, obviously, but why is it that the art form of photography is vilified? Like why?
Yeah,
Why?
good
you
question.
know,
I've
well, I mean,
wondered.
is it because people think that we're capturing their souls on camera? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what is it about photography that creeps people out? And lawmakers and police that what has happened in the past that was as a result of photographs being taken, this many people were harmed. Michael, what do you think? Where does that mindset come from?
I think I know. I think it comes from the fact that people have a warped perception of themselves. I see this every day as a portrait photographer. I think I'm 25. I know I'm 25, and somehow I see a picture of myself. I don't look 25. It's ridiculous. I don't want that.
Mhm.
And I think many people have that. If you look at, I mean, how often has it happened to you, that you take a photo of someone and they say, oh, I don't like that. How often do you intend to take a picture of someone and they say, well, only if you put your thinning lens on?
Always, yeah.
Always, exactly. And so, photography is seen as something intrusive, something potentially dangerous. Of course, things like 9/11 don't help. Nothing was done that had anything to do with photography, but there's a perception that it's dangerous. We don't like it anyway because it shows us not to be 25 anymore. So,
So
we
you
don't
think
like
you
it.
think it's mostly attributable to vanity, then, right? So
Well, that's part of it. I think that's a very important driver, vanity, for sure.
yeah,
It's not the only driver. I mean, the other one is, of course, that cameras are. Look, this is a scary thing. Look at this thing. It's scary.
that is very scary.
It's
Yeah.
bigger than a gun, so it's
Mhm.
probably as dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, we've got the all the panic about kids and everything. Taking pictures of kids is even worse. Now,
Right.
look at Vivian Maier, right?
Yeah.
That is enormous art. That's an enormous contribution to the 20th century in the United States. Vivian Maier's portfolio. That wouldn't be there if she hadn't been doing, street photography.
Mm. It's just scary. I mean, this whole thing is scary. I mean, everything when you zoom out from it and you look at it through a wide angle lens of the demise that's been happening to the photojournalistic industry, with
Exactly.
and how that's going away, and then this with perception of photographers, and then lawmakers doing this and that. Barry, next, when you look at this, what's your standpoint of why are we as photographers or capturers of photons villains for some reason?
I'm going to be really cynical and say that I don't think it's the general public that is. I think it's legislatures, lawmakers that feel like they can pass legislation that will help them win re-election.
Mm.
I'm here to protect your rights. I'm going to protect the image of you and your children from being used in ways that you don't want. I'm going to protect your privacy. and they can wave the flag and say that they're doing a bunch of stuff to protect it, and they're quite, actually doing quite the opposite. And and it's kind of just strange that if people are really concerned with privacy, then get the hell off of Facebook.
Exactly.
Yeah.
More than likely, they are going to be giving up more information about themselves, about their families, about their own children by
About the
being
drinking
on
habits.
Facebook, by using these cards at the supermarket that they swipe to get these small discounts on products that tells that that store and everyone else that exactly what they're buying. There's databases on everyone in terms of what you buy, how much you pay, where you travel, all those records. Every time you go and pay for gas and all the different locations you go, all that information is accumulated and sold for profit.
Yeah.
There's no privacy that's assumed. All that information that you think is your private information, no, it's a product, and it's out there in the open market. And if you're really scared about privacy, that's the stuff you should be concerned with, not this idea that some photographer is going out there and going to take a picture of you and do something with it that you don't want. It's a straw man's argument. It's just there's nothing there.
I love it. I love it.
Mhm.
And I love it when you rant and preach like that. That is awesome. That is very good. We're gonna have to make a clip out of that and put that piece on the internet right there, so people can play that over. Yeah, I mean, you're all joking aside, that you're exactly right. I mean, we're missing the target, right? Because all of these security breaches and hacking that's going on in the back end. Well, what was it just last year? It was Target got hacked, Chase got hacked, DSW, the shoe place, got hacked. I remember getting, it was like almost every other week I get an email or a letter from these folks saying, hey, we're sorry, but you might want to get a new credit card because all your stuff has been exposed to an unknown entity, and it's out in the wild now. And I remember last year this happened, I think it was a couple of weeks before Christmas, that Target got compromised and everyone's credit cards. I remember getting this letter saying, we've limited the spending on your account to $500. I'm like, it's before Christmas and you've limited my account, So, you're right, Abernex. I mean, it's a straw man argument. We're missing the target. Privacy is the big issue, but it's still, the question in my head is still, yes, privacy is the issue, but so why are you looking at this innocuous thing of photography as a way, even as disinformation or misdirection, away from the real issue that is privacy? I mean, why? I don't get that connect of why you want to choose this thing. Why not choose something else, that's more insidious than the taking of a photograph? I mean, I'm sure they will, like drones and all that stuff are in the crosshairs as well. Right?
The photograph is us. I mean, we take a look at those photographs, and basically it's a mirror of us. It's a very personal interpretation of us, representation of us. So I think that's why it's so easy to take it personally.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been people whose images have been taken by, say, a family photographer, and they've ended up in some advertising campaign for a cellular phone company in the Netherlands at one point. And there was like a family friend who was out there on vacation, and they saw the advertisement. I mean, yes, it does happen, and it's shocked. And I know that I wouldn't want myself and my family being used in that way, particularly if it's a product that I don't believe in.
Of course, yeah.
But I think that's part of that. The fact that all of a sudden you're walking down the street and there you are in ways that you had no control over. But again, the existing legislation in this country takes care of that.
Yeah, you think Arkansas was trying to protect against paparazzi, right? So because that's what it feels like, a paparazzi protection. I could see the city of Hollywood enacting a law like this, then it would kind of make sense because of whatever, but Arkansas.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't make any sense either, because if you're a celebrity and out there, the existing those people who are celebrities don't meet the same standard of privacy that you and I do.
Yeah, You mean
And
the
so,
whole reasonable expectation of privacy, or
oh, exactly.
they are in the public eye? Of course, people want to see them, so therefore they're more apt to be photographed than the guy that works at Starbucks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a sticky issue. I love tackling these issues. This is what TWiP is all about, having these kinds of conversations that dive a little bit deeper into these kinds of things and to bring them to light, because a lot of people that are listening to the show had no idea that this kind of stuff was going on. They just, hey, what's my next camera? I'm going to go get the Sony A7 or whatever, but they don't know, you don't get your brain around this kind of stuff. And in many ways, maybe it's good. Maybe ignorance is bliss. You just go out there shooting along your merry way. If you're never hassled, then it's all good. You got great shots.
You're
But
going to be hassled, though,
you're
Frederick.
going to
You're
be
going to be
hassled.
hassled more and more.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but how often do you get hassled in the street taking photos? Several times a year, at least.
Yeah.
No, it's getting more and more frequent.
Yeah.
I was
especially if you have the dreaded evil tripod with you.
Oh yes. Oh good God, yes.
Don't bring a tripod, because that's like you're just something to set your machine gun on, right?
That's right. No, tripods are terrible. Yeah. Or big lenses. I mean, that's another thing. Again, these big things are extremely dangerous.
Yeah. And for the listening audience, Michael's holding up a Canon 70-200, what looks like f2.8 gigantic lens there that's obscuring his entire head when he puts it in front of the camera.
Yeah, exactly. And so it intimidates, it scares, it's it's scary. I was told in front of the London Eye, the big Ferris wheel in London, England. I was approached by some person with a badge who told me delete those photos. I said, "You're kidding? It's a tourist attraction. I'm in a public street taking pictures of a tourist attraction." He said, "Delete those photos." So I had to delete those photos, and he watched as I delete. Of course, I went straight back to my hotel and undeleted them afterwards.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good excuse for one of those cameras that has dual card slots in it, because then you just put a little cheap, card in the other slot and say, you know what, you're right here. I'm just going to give you my card.
Absolutely.
And then go about your merry way.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I don't know. Baronex, you were going to say something?
No, I was just wondering where Michael lives, because I know that if in different places in Europe that the rights of photographers.
Well, again, yeah, you're right. Mainly France, though, and I live in Canada. I live in Toronto, just outside Toronto.
Oh,
but
okay.
I travel widely, and I've traveled all over the world. And here's the ironic thing. I think today, and this really hit me not so long ago. Today, in 2015, I have more freedom I had more freedom in mid-1980s Libya than I do today in, your typical Western country with a camera. And that's sad.
Mm.
I literally had more freedom in Libya walking around with cameras than I do in Toronto. And
now, when you say more freedom, what do you mean by that? You mean freedom from being hassled, or just being able to take whatever photos of whatever you want without fear of
both
messed with?
Both of the above, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, in Libya, you'd know not to take pictures of military things, but that's the same everywhere, and that's fair enough. That's, I guess, a reasonable precaution.
Yeah.
But save that. You could take pictures of anything, anywhere, go ahead and do it.
Taking pictures of military people or armed military people in that kind of area, that's that would kind of be like Darwin at work, right? So,
exactly, precisely. And
those people wouldn't last long anyway, and they'd be weeded out of the herd. So
exactly, and you know that, and that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But today, it's again, that really hit home when these police people, told me that I needed a model release to take pictures of police officers, which is complete nonsense. But they have the handcuffs and the guns, so.
Yeah,
well, go ahead, Baronex.
It's really important to know your rights. I mean, when you're dealing with law enforcement, we could have an entire conversation just on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
But nevertheless, it's really kind of important to know what your rights are and what your responsibilities are as a photographer who's working in public space. More often you're going to be confronted by people who are not law enforcement. Security people, private citizens. And so it's kind of important to kind of know where you stand with respect to that, so that you can, protect yourself and take care of yourself, and you can make informed decisions about what you photograph and not photograph, and if you're confronted, what you can do. There's that story about that there was a couple who's been traveling around the United States making photographs in different communities. And they had just photographed some homes in this area. And as they drove away to a gas station, and all of a sudden they were stopped by this couple who said that they had been photographing their children without permission.
Hmm.
And all of a sudden a gang of people surrounded them, threatening them, saying that you took pictures of our children without permission, and they felt very, very threatened. I mean, the woman was like in a complete panic. They were sort of, they were conservatively dressed. I mean, they're kind of young hipsters,
Sure.
and so they were making accusations whether you don't look like you're a law-abiding citizen and blah 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 blah. And luckily, law enforcement came and was able to escort them away. But that's the kind of scary situation that can happen to a photographer as a result of people making assumptions about what you can and can't do as a result of having a camera. You can be completely innocent of what you're doing, but people make the assumptions that they can
That's right.
do things to you, take your equipment, delete images, because they feel they're in the right and you are in the wrong. And if you don't know how to protect yourself, it becomes a real perilous situation for you. I mean, that's
Yeah.
unusual, but nevertheless, it's the kind of environment that we're living in.
Yeah.
But you know what? You fast forward into the future with these wearables that are popping up that shoot 4K, and these cameras. I've seen some Kickstarter projects with cameras that you wear on you that snap a picture every second just to document your day, and things like that you wouldn't know. I mean, Michael, your camera is the extreme, right? Of course, it screams, "I'm a professional photographer, beware of me." But
That's
what
right.
if you had a camera mounted in the bridge of your glasses and you're walking around doing street photography, POV street photography of your day, and then you're going to come back and call the images later?
Yeah.
Now what? Now all those laws are out of the wind. They're in the trash now because no one knows you're taking photos until you post them,
That's right.
right? So I don't know. I mean, this stuff is crazy. I kind of hate being. Well, I really hate being a villain just because I have a chosen profession or hobby. And I don't understand. I'm still kind of trying to grok why that is, and what that is in our legal system and in our own psyche as a society that makes us suspect because of the camera or because of the profession or because we choose to document things. So who knows? Who knows? All right, guys, let's move on to this next story. I think we're going to make this the last story. We're almost at the end of the show already. Look at that. See how fast these things go? But this story number 3 is about Amazon. So Amazon, to set the stage for this story, on This Week in Photo over the past several years, I think, every now and then we have a show and we talk about backup strategies and storage strategies for photographers. And at the end of each one of those shows, it always ends with, it depends, or the weak link is the cloud solution because you got to get your stuff up there before you can, all that stuff. So Amazon has announced another entrant here. So let me read this. So if you were ever on the fence about storing your photos online due to price, Amazon has removed the price barrier. Now users who are, and I hate the word user, could they just say people or customers? So I'm going to replace that. So now people who are not subscribed to Amazon Prime can also get unlimited photo storage for just $12 a year. Now I'm a Amazon Prime addict, so I already had this, but I don't use it. It's funny, I don't use my Amazon Prime storage. But if you're not on Amazon Prime, you can get unlimited photo storage for a year. So you just sign up for an unlimited everything plan, and that'll let you store your documents, your photos, your music files, and your videos for $60 a year. So that if you want to do more than just photos at $12, you can put everything up there, whatever you want, for $60 a year. So it should be interesting. So in the context of this conversation, I'm going to ask you guys. So, Michael, I want to start with you. When you look at something like this, particularly the $60 a year plan, where you could theoretically take every bit and byte of data that you own and put it on Amazon servers, would you be comfortable with that? Even if you could get it up there, would you be comfortable with that?
Well, there's two questions. Yeah, first, can I get it up there?
I know.
The first thing I do is get up my calculator. You know.
Yeah, it's diminishing returns as we get older, and the amount of data that we can put up there is kind of converging.
I probably need 10 terabytes of storage right now, so it'll probably take me about 2 years to get it up there. So that's one.
Yep.
But then the other one is, is that in fact something I'd be comfortable with? I'm not entirely comfortable with giving one corporation the power to to decide whether I have access to my information, to decide whether that information should be read, because it'll probably be read, by systems, just in case there's anything bad in there.
Yeah.
It's not impossible to imagine that authentication mechanisms go wrong, right? Because they do sometimes.
Yep.
There was a week I couldn't order anything off Amazon recently. There was a problem with that password thing. And I was on the phone with them constantly, and they acknowledged the problem. Yeah, it's a problem. We'll solve it. Nevertheless, for that week, I couldn't order. Well, that's fine, but a week of not accessing my data would be less fine. Then of course we're going across borders as well. So now I have, U.S. Spy agencies going through all my data, not just Canadian spy agencies. And I don't know. I'm not sure that I'm entirely comfortable. At the same time, the convenience of having everything in the cloud and, not having to worry too much about it. Of course, we should still worry because cloud servers can break as well.
They're just servers, right? Yeah. You know what? As I was reading through this and as you were talking through it, I was thinking of a Barry Nex's rant a couple minutes ago about privacy, right? So,
right. Exactly.
On the one hand, we're giving all this data up, our credit card numbers and our shopping patterns and preferences and all this stuff, and then complaining about being photographed. But then on the other hand, we're going to if you subscribe to the $60 plan, the whole of your digital life could be on one server, which, I would guess that the NSA could go sift through anytime they want to find connections in the chaos under the auspices of looking for terrorists, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's always a good excuse. Yeah, that's right.
Right. They could go through your stuff and say, hey, Barry Nex, I don't know. I see this document here and this document here. We're going to have to keep an eye on you. Barry Nex, what about you? I mean, do you feel the same way when you think about putting the whole of your digital life online, or is that just go ahead, put it up there?
I mean, I think about privacy just like Michael mentioned. I mean, it's the idea that you're putting aside from the professional photographers out there. Let's just talk about just the average Joe enthusiast photographer. You're largely putting your personal life up on the cloud, and for a corporation to protect and to have a certain level of control over it.
Exactly.
Right? And that for me is kind of scary because you really don't know what sort of safeguards are occurring with respect to that data and that information. The NSA has the ability to be able to get into your information in ways that you can't even imagine. You don't necessarily have to have done anything wrong.
Exactly.
You just have to fit a software profile, and you will be included in whatever search that is, because it's sort of just a global. It's just an algorithm that is looked to search for certain things, and you could be included in that. And you include, photographs, millions and millions of photographs of your life over decades. Who's to say that information couldn't come up, and all of a sudden, you find something about your life is interrupted as a result of some mistake. A single keystroke error, and all of a sudden you're on a no-fly list, or whatever.
Yeah, or you appear in a picture that some bad person is in the background, and they get tagged, and you get tagged as known associates with that person because you happen to be at a party, and someone who knows, right?
That's a perfect example. And before I sound like I'm completely paranoid. But I also see the importance of having some sort of offline, a cloud sort of backup. Because my fear has always been, even though I have backups here, that if I had a fire here,
exactly,
I don't have a cloud backup, or I don't have another hard drive at another location, my life work is gone. I mean, I think about those people who lost everything in that fire in New York last week.
Yeah.
And it's like, God, if that happened to me, everything would be gone if I didn't have a cloud backup, if I didn't have something there. So I think that for the I think that the choice of being able to store your images on a cloud, be it with Amazon or some other organization, I think it's a valid one, but I think you should be informed in terms of what rights you have and the corporation have, and what they're basically the what stipulations that they have in terms of the protection of your data.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
terms of service,
I,
and what it sounds like is we gotta, if you were somehow able to get all your data up there on a cloud, which is good. Now you're safeguarded from any natural disasters at home, all that stuff, right? And theoretically, you could restore it if something happened to a new location. But then, what I'm thinking, based on what you just said, Barry, next, you probably want to have another corporate entity, Michael, and back up
exactly.
your data from that one corporate entity to the other corporate entity, which then doubles your
Yeah,
exposure.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, but also your
There's no way
freedom. I
to win
mean,
this.
I know it's not necessarily a win-win, is it? What I do is I tend to keep my data on a couple of local backup drives, and then I have one off-site storage drive that I replace every 3 months. So worst case, I'll lose 3 months of my life photographically.
Yeah.
But at least that way it's under my control. I have all these nightmare scenarios going through me. I shoot nudes. Imagine that someone decides they're no good, and we don't store nudes, and we've canceled your account. Next thing, my work is all gone.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
not. I don't like the idea of giving someone else that amount of control, at least not without very, very strict and clear policies and so on.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
I
I
mean,
communicate.
there were some stories in the news last year that involving, I think it was Dropbox and maybe it was Microsoft storage, but it was, I think, I don't remember the exact details of it, but the gist of it was this person had photos on their cloud drive that were innocuous, but there was some sort of bot apparently, which we didn't know about it, some sort of bot
Yeah,
looked through this person's
exactly.
drawers and found all this stuff
Yeah,
and then flagged the account, shut the account down,
yeah,
and then
exactly.
I think the victim was thinking like, okay, I had no idea you were even looking at my stuff.
Yeah, suddenly the user was no longer a user.
Yeah, yeah, that is, see,
Yeah.
that's all scary, and that shines a light on the fact that you think because you have a Dropbox folder or whatever folder on your desktop and
Hmm.
you put your files into it that they're somehow secure. I was listening to the Mac Power Users podcast, which is one of my favorite podcasts, and one of the people on there, David Sparks, I think it was talking about, he's a lawyer, but of course he's not playing a lawyer on the show. He's just a photographer or just a Mac user. But he was saying when he puts his files on Dropbox, and unless they're completely innocuous files, he doesn't care about it. He zips them up into a sparse bundle, which is a way to make kind of a virtual disk and encrypt it. So before you put any files basically in your Dropbox, he locks them down in kind of a virtual safety deposit box and puts that on the Dropbox. So when I heard that, I'm thinking, yeah, see, now you are completely aware that putting things on Dropbox is just like putting them, like saying, okay, they're on my property, they're in my front yard, so they're safe. So you're gonna put them in a box in your front yard and chain them down, and now they're kind of safe, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. This is scary stuff, man. Scary
Well,
stuff.
I think we just need to make sure that everyone's aware of the problems or the potential problems, and
Yeah.
we need to have very clear policies. We need to make sure that we know what they're going to do. How many people think? How many people know that Apple goes through the stuff that you store on your Apple Cloud account? Because they
Right.
do.
Right.
And if there's anything untoward there, they'll take action.
Or what
Well,
agreements they have with the NSA to disclose certain, who knows this
yeah,
stuff, man. That might,
yeah.
you guys need to write a book. You both are authors. We need a book on photographers, security and photography in the digital age, 2015 and beyond. That would be a great book to scare the
Hmm.
bejesus out of everybody.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, that'd be a good thing.
Yeah, it would be.
If we're
The very
warned, I
next is
think we
taking
can
notes
manage
now.
these
He's like,
things.
call my publisher.
I know. I keep reaching for my pen. I don't have one.
Yeah.
But yeah, if we're warned, we can start dealing with these things.
Yeah, yeah, early warning. Just like being warned early about a asteroid.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah, you got it.
All right, guys. Geez, we're running out of time here. I want to jump into our listener Q&A and see if we can answer this. So, in case the TWiP listeners don't know, this is when we answer listener questions, which is very much fun. So this week's question is from Anastasia, and Anastasia says, I hear people talk about using something called back button focus.
Oh.
What is it, and should I be using it? Back button focus. Very next Perillo. What's back button focus? Do you know?
Yeah, back button focus is the ability to separate the autofocus function from the shutter release button. So,
yes, which is
example,
awesome.
Here's my camera, and typically you have to press the shutter release button halfway in order to initiate focus, and then you press all the way down in order for it to focus. But you have the capability in a lot of cameras to separate that button from the autofocus function. So you could have on a lot of, I think practically every camera. This one doesn't have it fully. Hopefully a firmware update will take care of that. But what you can do is that you can assign a button on the back, like this has an AF on button.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can do is that you will press the AF on button, and that will initiate the focus. And then either by fully depressing the button or holding it down or letting it go, it won't refocus. So at that point, when you press the shutter release button, focus will not change.
And in what circumstances would you even care about that?
A lot of people who are sports shooters find that really helpful, because as they're keeping up with their subject, they don't necessarily want the camera refocusing sometimes. So they want to be able to control it completely independently.
Mm-hmm.
Wildlife shooters, for example, kind of like to have that control. So if they have a bird, for example, and they have some foliage between the camera and the bird, each time they press that shutter release button, that lens may rack back and forth, and it might focus on the foliage instead of the bird. Well, once you've locked the focus on the bird, you can just take your finger off that AF on button and just keep taking pictures. You can fully release your finger from the shutter release button and fully depress it, and focus won't change until you've initiated it again using the AF on button. Personally, I don't use it. I mean, I grew up learning how to slightly depress the shutter release button and use the AF lock button when I needed it. If you do choose to start using it, there's a learning curve, because what can happen is that if you switch your camera so that you are using back button focus, you'll start taking pictures, and then you'll realize that you're not focusing.
Guilty.
Result in a bunch of out of focus pictures. So you go that route, but you just know that you got to remember. Otherwise, you're going to miss some great photographs that are going to be completely out of focus.
That happened to me. I think it takes like two shoots for you to got to get your brain around it. Because I was doing that. I was on which camera was I using? The GH4, which has that feature. You can switch it to be back button, use back button. And I'm at this model shoot. I'm like, oh yeah, and I'm looking at the back of the LCD, and they look okay. So I'm just continuing to shoot. This was like for maybe 10 minutes or so, and then I look and zoom in, and because you zoom in on the eyeball to make sure that the eye's sharp, and they're all soft. I'm like, okay, what is going on here? And then my brain had to rewind back to this YouTube video that I watched that said I should be using back button focus. And I was playing with my camera at the time to see how to set it up, and I never set it back. So you're absolutely right. Michael, what about you? I mean, are you a back button focuser or a half presser?
Yeah, I am, and there's a great coincidence here, and that is that just 3 days ago I wrote an article on my teaching blog on back button focus.
Oh.
It's called Back Button Focus: Why and How. That's on speedlighter.ca.
Oh.
I'm a back button focuser for a few reasons, and audience, you don't need to make notes because it's in that blog post.
Yep, and we'll link to that for sure.
Thanks. No, well, one of them, first of all, let's distinguish back button focus from back focus. Back focus is a bad thing. That means your lens isn't accurately focusing. Back button focus is a good thing if you like that sort of thing. I do it for a few reasons. One is, of course, as was just mentioned, you can do it once, you can focus, and if your subject doesn't change, like for me in a portrait shoot, I do a lot of executive portraits, headshots. So I focus very accurately once, and I'm at f8, so every subsequent photo of the next 25 photos are all going to be the same. So why should I have to focus for every one? I don't have to.
Yeah.
Second one is that it can be conceptually nice to separate the process of exposure from the process of focusing, because they're not the same thing. They're completely, they're not at all the same thing. They're not even related. And right now, for most cameras, one button operates them both. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Two different things should have two different buttons. But the third reason I like to use back button focus is this. I can focus using that back button, and by the way, on my camera, I assign both buttons, and for those of you who are watching, I'm pointing at them now. There's the asterisk button and the AF on button. I assign both of them to this function so that if I'm in a hurry, I can grab the wrong one. Doesn't matter. They both do the same. And once I've focused, I can then focus manually to fine tune or to change if I wish. And that for me is an overriding reason to do this. So I can autofocus, and then I have the freedom whenever I wish to do manual tuning on top of that.
But there's some muscle memory that needs to be established, because I've been shooting since the 80s with the half press method, and trying to retrain my brain to use back button, even though it's great, because like you said, even shooting models, if you have a model that's on an X on the ground, she's going to stay within that depth of field. You only need to focus once, so you don't need to keep focus, recompose, click, focus, recompose, click. You can focus once, and then every time you hit the shutter button, you're taking a photo. It kind of it's very freeing in a lot of ways. It's a little unnerving, but it's freeing.
You get used to it, Frederick. I mean, I do shoots where I use two different cameras that are both set differently. One to back button focus, the other one not. I have no problem switching back and forth. I'll figure it out, and you will too.
Okay. Well, practice.
And in the blog post, I've also indicated how to do it, at least for some common cameras, so have a look. And, what I would advise is people try and see if they like this way of focusing. I reckon that about three quarters of the people who try this love it and stay with it, and the other quarter don't, and that's fine.
Yeah. Whatever, it's just another option, right? Just whatever works best for your brain.
Exactly.
Good. Well, Anastasia, I hope that answered your question. It certainly helped me. I'm gonna force myself into using back button focus for like a month, and we'll see if it sticks. Kind of like forcing myself into using my Wacom tablet to see if I actually use it.
Frederick?
What's that?
Have you done that yet? Have you pulled that Wacom out of the box at least?
I got it right here, man. Look, it's right here. I can prove it right there.
Okay, all right.
There's a Wacom tablet. It is not charged, but it's right.
One step at a time.
I'm gonna use it. Every now and then I get into this binge of watching Aaron Nace videos on Flurn.com, and that man is a whiz with his Wacom tablet. So every time I watch an Aaron Nace video, I'm like, okay, I gotta pull my Wacom tablet out and get good with the pressure sensitivity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, guys, that's our listener Q&A. All right, before we continue with the Picks of the Week segment, I want to thank our next sponsor for this episode of TWiP, and that's our good friends over at lynda.com. All right, guys, let's do this Picks of the Week segment. Remember, both of you guys, you can recommend anything to the TWiP Army as long as it is somehow related to photography. Michael, I'm going to let you go first since you're the new guy on the show. What is your pick of the week?
So I find this difficult, not because I don't have any, but because I've had too many. I've got at least 52 of them. So my pick of the week is the Honel Photo 1/4-inch grid. And for those of you who are watching, I'll show you. Yeah, that's the site, and it's a very simple grid. It's a grid you can put on speedlights, on small flashes, in other words.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that I do a lot of flash work. My speedlighter.ca site kind of gives that away, perhaps. And the grid gives me the freedom to show, to use flashes and to have the light go only where it should go. In other words, not everywhere else throughout the room.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I used to use grids in big studio lights, but they're big and cumbersome and heavy and so on. They're really annoying. These things are amazing. You just slap them on your SB600 or SB800 or SB900 or 580EX or 430EX, whatever the flash it is, and you now have a very nice directional flash. And that really unlocks a lot of the advantages of off-camera flash. And as you know, everyone's going on about off-camera flash. Well, if you have off-camera flash without grids, the light's going to go everywhere, and it's going to distribute throughout the room, and your pictures just aren't going to be as effective. And so the grid is my most frequently used flash add-on.
Wonderful, wonderful. And what do these things run? What's the price? Oh, $30. Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. And I love these products because they are sturdy, small, light, and affordable, and that's a great combination.
Yeah. It's funny. We don't hear a whole lot about speed light photography, or maybe I just don't. I'm a sample size of one. But speed light photography, it feels like I used to hear a lot more about it, say 3-4 years ago. But it seems like as sensors get more and more capable, we hear less and less about strobes. Are you seeing the same thing, Michael?
No, not all. I see more and more, because I see more and more that photographers today have to distinguish themselves from Uncle Fred. And
Yeah.
I don't mean you, because you're not Uncle Fred. Uncle Fred
I
is
am Uncle Fred to like 6 people, but yeah.
yeah, but not that Uncle Fred. The Uncle Fred I'm talking about is the Uncle Fred that has a big SLR camera that's on the green auto square.
Yeah.
And that Uncle Fred thinks he's a photographer. And professional photographers like myself fight Uncle Fred all the time. Simply because our customers know that I have a big camera, and so does their Uncle Fred, and so therefore they are equivalent. And Uncle Fred says, I'll do it for $100, and Michael says, I want $5,000 for that wedding.
Yeah.
And so that's a ripoff. Unless Michael can show very quickly and instantly that he's better, many, many times better than Uncle Fred. And Flash is one of the ways that you can show that.
Yeah.
And I find that schools don't teach it much, and certainly new photographers and photographers who start because they like their kids and then they make a business out of it, they don't have those skills at all. And they know that they need them and they want them. And it's so easy to make your outside pictures at noon. You know that you can take pictures outside at noon. It's easy as long as you have some flash and you know how to use it.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So no, I see more and more that realization is really hitting home.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the Honel Speed Grid, or Photo Speed Grid, $30 from Honel, HONL I'd imagine you can probably get these at your fine online retailers or offline retailers, your brick and mortars
Absolutely.
across the world. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them everywhere in stores. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Mr. Barry X Perillo, what is your pick of the week?
My pick of the week is one of my more recent acquisitions, which is the Zoom H5N.
Oh.
I like that one. Nice.
I have been using the H4N for probably 7 or 8 years, probably a little longer, almost for the entire time that I've been doing the podcast. And I was attracted to this not only for the podcast, but for some of the photo projects that I'm doing that include some multimedia in which I have to record audio. I was entertaining the idea of the H6, but when I saw the H5, I realized it had exactly what I needed. When I'm doing interviews for the show or I'm interviewing people for the projects, sometimes I've wanted the ability to be able to interview more than one person. And normally with the H4N, I had one XLR for my mic and another XLR for their mic, and that was about the extent of it. But with the H6 and the H5, they have these modules on the top which you can remove and place another module in there. And they have a module that gives you 2 additional XLR connections. So now I could set up 4 separate mics and record an entire conversation among 4 people, me and 3 others. And for me, that was indispensable. They've made some really good improvements in terms of sound quality in there. The noise floor on this is much reduced as compared to the H4, so you get much cleaner sound.
Nice.
And one of the really, really sweet things about this is that they have these analog dials.
Yeah, yeah.
Rather than having to go through the menu to adjust the volume for each channel, I can just do it visually by just adjusting these dials. So that makes it so much easier for me to adjust for my volume and the volume of anyone else that I'm recording. And it just looks cool. It's a little more sleeker than the H4N. I don't know if there's much difference of weight. This thing uses two AA's, and I think I usually use nickel metal hydride batteries on
Mhm.
there, and it lasts me more than adequately. And I have a 4 GB card in here, which gives me hours and hours of content. I think the limit on it is about either a 16 gig or 32 gig card. So
Which will go for like days and days, right?
yeah, so I'm always recording WAV files
Hmm.
with this anyway, and this is my portable studio when I record the podcast in person, and it's
Yep.
great. So for anyone out there who's interested in recording audio, especially if they're doing multimedia with DSLRs and capturing video, the sound on the camera, onboard camera, even with an attached mic, is not going to compare to the sound quality you can get when you're recording from a lavalier mic or even a shotgun mic that's being recorded directly on this. So if you're serious about video, DSLR video, you need to get one of these.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, I completely agree with you. In fact, I had a Zoom H4. That was my portable recorder, the H4n. And I recently, or not recently, I guess about a couple months ago, I upgraded to the H6, which everything you said exactly. But I think the main difference is you can have two more inputs on there. So I can, with it, I think with the additional module to add two more XLR ports on there, I can record up to 6 people independently on separate channels. So 6 mics, 6 XLR mics running into that thing independently potted with a analog dial, and it's just magic. It's magic. It's the best investment for anyone that does this kind of stuff, right? That does multimedia or audio or anything where you need to capture high quality audio. These devices, the H6, the H5, and I have a H1 that I keep in my camera bag, which is just a little tiny handheld audio recorder that I use just in case, because I can plug a little lav mic into it and mic myself and do man on the street stuff from my camera bag. So I don't have to
Yeah,
worry about ever being without audio.
and some people don't need this. But if you like, for example, if you're doing some photo documentary work and you want to be able to interview your subjects and get some, like the Humans of New York series where he photographs strangers on New York and he
Yeah.
interviews.
Yep.
Um, some people are working on projects very similar to that, and if you want to record those conversations, the H1 I think is ideal. Sound quality is really good. It's incredibly small. The
Yep.
sound quality you get from it is excellent. So you don't necessarily have to invest in something as expensive as this or as
Mhm.
bulky as this. That H1 can fit into your shirt pocket easily.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it runs on what, one AA battery, and it is $99, I want to say. It's
Yeah,
probably
that's
cheaper than
great.
that now. Yeah, it's under $100, and you're set. You are set. Cool. All right, excellent pick of the week. All right, so my pick is so just to set the stage of this particular piece. So a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Doug Kay or someone's pick of the week was a company called Meerkat, which created a piece of software that runs on the iPhone to essentially allow you to live stream and allow your Twitter followers to follow you and look at you or look at what you're streaming live. Long story short, that company hit some hard times when Twitter itself announced their app called Periscope, which essentially does the same thing, and I would argue probably a lot better than what they were doing. So my pick of the week is going to be Periscope, and in fact, uh, I'm going to actually do a quick broadcast right now of a hangout that's being broadcasted, and hopefully I won't crash my internet bandwidth. So right now, I'm looking at the app. I ran the app, and all it's saying right here is, "What are you seeing now?" Right, and with a big red start broadcast button. So I'm gonna say recording, REC, recording TWiP. Okay, so come watch me. Come watch. Okay, so the name of this video is called Recording TWiP, Come Watch. So what I'm going to do is, if I can do this right. Okay, so now all I have to do is say start broadcast. So I've started the broadcast, and now the people, okay, folks that are maybe listening to this live, this is me recording TWiP live, and on the screen here is a Barry X Perillo and Michael Willems right there as we record a live episode of TWiP from my home studio. So now I'm recording, guys. So not only did I make this my pick of the week, but I'm recording this live as we record an episode of TWiP, and it's all broadcasting. So we're broadcasting TWiP live through Hangouts. I'm broadcasting me recording TWiP live in the home studio using Periscope, and it works. Look at that. The whole thing is working.
Man, you're
So,
giving me brain freeze just thinking about all
Yeah,
that.
it's like, I'm
exactly.
I'm crossing the streams, and like the numbers of people that are watching us is going up. Like right now, it started at 0. Now it's already at 30, 35. It's 30 or 29 now. So this is pretty cool. I mean, the fact that I was just able to type, "Hey, we're recording TWiP," hit a button, and now I'm recording and broadcasting live to you guys. So very cool. So folks that are watching this, you can see how my screen works. Look at this. So look, here's my Hangout. This is how I have it set up for the Hangout. So you can see This Week in Photos on the top there. We've got a Baron X Perillo and Michael Willems in the room with me as we record this show live. Okay. All right. So anyway, that's my pick of the week, folks. Thanks, folks, that tuned in to watch this live stream on Periscope. I got to hang up because I have to end the show now. So I will see you guys later. So stop broadcast. There you go. Okay, so now on the phone it says it's uploading for replay. So it's going to upload that video so that people can then watch it. I think it stays live on Twitter for 24 hours or so. So people can then watch that little clip later, and it's also giving me the option of saving it to my camera roll. So it's not lost forever like a Vine or something. It's actually on my camera roll that I can go back and edit it later and do other stuff with it.
Wow.
And it's free. I mean, it's free. That's ridiculous. So I think that's one of the best apps I've seen so far for doing this sort of social video. Like a Barry X, you could go out on a street photography workshop and bring your Twitter audience into it when you're out there. Michael, you could do the same. You know, when you're doing street photography or doing a model shoot or something.
Yeah.
You know, you could totally bring the world in there for a couple of minutes and have them get a feel for what you're doing. And the whole live aspect of Periscope just adds this sort of weird, like, I don't know, it's a weird kind of feel of like, okay, I'm sharing this with the rest of the world for just a couple of seconds and then it's over. So it's a weird nuance and a weird take on social media. So definitely give that a shot if you guys haven't played with it yet. It's called Periscope from the Twitter folks.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, guys, before we end the show, what have you guys got coming up? Michael, what's happening in your world over the next couple of weeks?
Well, really more of the same. More shooting, more texting, more writing rather. A lot more teaching, but especially since we're about to head out of our igloos, more outside stuff.
Head out of your igloos. See, we don't have igloos here in California. You know, a Barry X.
Of course, as it happens, we don't
down in Southern California, enjoying the weather down here, and I'm in Northern. It's about 2 degrees cooler up here, but still very nice, right?
Well, whenever I drive down to Florida or Texas or whatever, it's the great thing driving down is that every hour it gets about 3 degrees warmer. It's not so good on the way back. When every hour it gets about 3 degrees colder.
Yeah.
So we don't actually have igloos here, but it is cold. It's been a really bad winter. Haven't been able to do anything outside. And, outside Flash is so awesome. So we're going to do a whole lot of stuff outside.
Yeah. I actually kind of miss the different changing of the seasons. I'm from Chicago originally, and we actually had winter, spring, summer, and fall.
I've got an idea. We can swap. My house is yours. That's it.
You know what the cool thing about that is? There's this thing called air travel that I can go out there and visit it and then leave.
Yeah, okay. I was afraid you'd say that.
I could leave all that snow behind and come back to California and hang out. Cool. Well, Michael, welcome. Thank you for welcome back to the show, and thanks for coming on again. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. My pleasure.
All right, Barry X. What about you? What do you have coming up in the next couple of months, weeks, etc.?
Well, in a couple of weeks, I'm actually teaching a street photography workshop through the Los Angeles Center of Photography, formerly the Julia Dean Photo Workshop. So on April 25th, we're doing a one-day workshop in which we'll be starting off at the LICP Center in Hollywood, and I'm going to give sort of a primer on street photography and my approach. And then we're going to catch the metro station from Hollywood and head downtown, and we're going to start around Union Station, Elvira Street, and go around Central Market on Broadway. And then we're going to head back after a couple of hours of photography and lunch, and we're going to sit down and critique some of the images that are produced by the different participants. So it'll give people a complete experience. So a lot of times people take a street photography workshop, they go and take the pictures, but they don't have the opportunity to get the feedback.
Right.
And get to see what other people did under similar circumstances. So there's still spots available. You can go to the Los Angeles Center of Photography website or the Candid Frame, and you'll find links there to sign up, and I'd love to see some of you there. With the weather as it's been in Los Angeles for the last couple of weeks, if it holds up, it should be just a beautiful day for some street photography. Whether you're just beginning or you have some level of experience in street photography, it should be a whole lot of fun.
And I would encourage the TWiP Army to go attend that and congratulate Barry Next for joining the TWiP network as one of our newest hosts on the network. So yeah, go out there and say hello and buy him a cup of coffee, right? All right, guys. And Barry Next, make sure you throw that link to that in the show notes so that we can put that in the blog post for this episode. All right, and my what do I have coming up? Well, May 1st, next month. We're in April. We're almost in April. May 1st through 3rd, myself and Craig Colvin will be doing a workshop in Joshua Tree. It's a landscape and artistic nude photography workshop out there. So definitely come hang out with us out there. All the details are at thisweekinphoto.com, and we're going to have a blast. It's a full 3 days of photography, hanging out in the park. We've got all our permits and all that stuff, so we can just have a good old time out there taking pictures of landscapes, beautiful women on the landscapes, and together and separate. So it should be a really good time. And then, of course, after each full day of shooting, we're just going to hang out in the hotel and just chat about photography and relax and just have a good time. So that's what photography is all about: the camaraderie, making good images, and then going home with some stunning images that you can stick in your portfolio and say, hey, look at what I did. So very cool. I'm very much looking forward to that. All right. Well, thanks again to both you guys for coming on the show. I think this was a fascinating show. I think I've jotted down the title for this episode while we were talking earlier. I'm going to title this show "I Villain, I Photographer." So we'll see. Awesome. We'll see what kind of traffic we get with that salacious headline. So.
Right.
So that's the end of this episode of TWiP. I want to thank our sponsors, FreshBooksandLynda.com, for their support of the show. And if you guys want to check all the stuff that we're doing out and all the shows that we have going on, just head over to thisweekinphoto.com. You can see everything we have going on. If you want to see a listing of all the shows, just go to thisweekinphoto.com/subscribe, and you'll see everything with easy links to subscribe to what we have going on. And that's it. And with that, it is time to take that lens cap off.